What's up, Techlo Pounders? I'm Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily Dash Gameplay, and today we're checking out a Maxx game. If you are new to the channel, welcome to the Industrial Revolution. What we do here is review replays of games that I played on Talishar days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed that I lose my bias and can more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will talk through turn cycles and give my thoughts on the lines that I take, then compare that to the line that I did take at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. If you would like to follow along with the list that I'm using in this video, a FaB deck link is available in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A YouTube subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily Dash gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me, if you want to go above and beyond, is through Patreon. The Patreon link is also in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you daily FaB gameplay Discord access. Your name could appear in every DFG or DDG video. You could get bonus videos every week, and there are even more great benefits to come. Daily FaB or Dash gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who do choose to support me on Patreon, I truly appreciate it. Let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. You may have noticed, this isn't FaB. This is a new hero. Her name is Dash. I had spoken about maybe playing some Maxx, maybe playing some other heroes, but a buddy of mine convinced me to settle on Dash for now. FaB is of course number 1 on the Living Legend leaderboard. He's getting a little close to hitting that LL. I think there's a good chance that he doesn't make it through the first half of 2024. So rather than continuing to focus on a hero that I do think will be gone soon, we're going to shift our focus down to number 2 on the LL leaderboard, Dash Inventor Extraordinaire. Realistically, she is primarily an aggro hero. I am an aggro player. The style clicks with me, but there are enough matchups where she gets to flex an alternate play style, more of a mid-range pistol plan. It's a good introduction to other play styles for me as a player. It grows my repertoire of heroes and deepens my understanding of the game. Now, Maxx, of course, is not a hero that would prompt us to bring in the mid-range pistol plan, as we do need to race the mechanoid. I do want to point out that this list is not of my own design. I am not a deck builder, nor am I nearly proficient enough with Dash to be able to put something like this together. This is taken directly from Raj Parikh's 20K Invitational second place list. As my understanding of Dash deepens, it may be that I am able to make some changes. I did play against Raj in Cincinnati 2 weekends ago. He played a slightly different version of this list. It had a backup protocol red in it that I really liked. Once I understand this deck better and know how to change it, I will be making some alterations. But for now, we are running purely what he ran in the 20K Invitational. As I play the deck more often and develop the knowledge of matchup specifics, I will be fleshing out the matchup guide. For this game, we are not going to change anything about this list. Everything stays as it is. I have adjusted the list at least to have a sideboard. I believe this is the most aggressive yet value-oriented way to play the game. I say that because you'll see that there is a Techlo Pounder still in the sideboard and an induction chamber in the main board. You'll also see that I start with the induction chamber. This is because our only armor is adaptive plating. Teklo Pounders, of course, do run out of steam counters. Induction chambers stay on the battlefield until they are destroyed, so if we want to get value out of our adaptive plating, we will need to have an item available. Teklo Pounders and Teklo Cores are unreliable for being on the field when we need them to be, so we use our induction chamber. This deck also has a large amount of blues in it, and extra blues in the hand work really well with induction chamber. A blue on your turn is worth 4 points of damage. You load your pistol, you load your chamber, you shoot your pistol, you give your pistol go again, then you load and shoot the pistol a second time. Speaking of that, I will touch briefly on some video editing improvements that I've made. I've been utilizing the speed up feature of Clipchamp a lot more readily with these dash videos, because loading the pistol, then the chamber, then the pistol is boring and not engaging to watch. So I will be speeding that up. It's going to translate really well into other matchups like Kano or Bolton, where they fire off their combo and I can't interact with it in any meaningful way, but I don't want to just cut that footage out of the video altogether, so I'll speed it up. None of that really has to do with this game or sideboarding. That is all just little notes I can put into this video. I did want to explain at least why I'm not running 2 pounders against Maxx. This is a 60 card main deck. It's entirely possible that I'm supposed to cut something to make space for a second pounder, but intuitively at least, it seems like this works fine. We have 4 items in the deck that are searchable with 3 Spark of Geniuses. Outside of those, everything in the deck blocks for 3. You'll notice that every card in this 60 card deck is a Mechanologist card. We cannot miss on boosting. We cannot miss on Foundry Heart. So once we internalize that, every turn is geared towards value. It's very unlikely that I am firing off every card in my hand outside of certain situations. For the most part, if I have an extra blue, I'm blocking with it. If I have 2 extra blues, I'll block with 2 of them and put 1 into the chamber. This isn't FaB. Dash blocks really well. We have so many 3 blocks. It's actually really exciting as a FaB player to say, oh, everything, and I actually can block. That's cool. But I am rambling. So we'll get into the game and we'll see how our first experience as Dash goes. I have sped up through the choosing of the induction chamber and the adaptive plating. There aren't many decisions to be made there. Here we have Maxx boosting a crankshaft. As far as our opening hand, we can't block with Teklo Core and we would like to save high octane, so we are just going to block with our 2 T-bones. We notice that Maxx is on pistol as opposed to Banksy, so I'm fully expecting that the rest of his turn is just pitching to make a hyperdriver, not cranking it, and then passing. And we see that is what happens. So coming back to our turn, off of 4 cards, I don't really want to play high octane yet. I'd like to stick it into Arsenal. So the only thing I'm going to do with this hand is pitch my blue to load pistol and chamber. I will attack with a zipper hit, boost it. I can attack with my pistol, then use the chamber to give the pistol go again and end with the core. The other thing I can do, which I think is actually a better line, is to pitch the blue to play zipper hit, then boost it, then we Foundry Heart. That is going to turn our 2 extra resources into 3 extra resources. We load the gun, we load the chamber, we shoot the gun, we give it go again, we load the gun a second time, but instead of shooting it, we just play our Teklo Core and Arsenal High Octane. As I play Dash, I am recognizing that the real question a lot of the time is, how am I getting the most value out of my cards? And how am I sequencing? So here, for example, we can no longer take the line I described. We can shoot our gun, we can give it go again. then play a core and arsenal the high octane, but we no longer have a resource available to use Foundry Heart. Sequencing on Dash matters a lot more than it does on FaB, because FaB for the most part just puts his hand on the table in a non-discriminate order and gets value out of it. And Dash can kind of do the same thing. Pulse Wave Harpoon wants you to attack and boost a lot without breaking the chain, but outside of Pulse Wave Harpoon, Dash really needs to pay attention to when she's boosting and when she's using the Foundry Heart. Dash's biggest attacks, Big Shot and Maximum Velocity, don't need a consistent chain. They just need you to have boosted multiple times in the turn. So we can really get creative with how we are using our Foundry Heart and how we are ordering our actions. I bring it up here because based on loading the pistol, then the chamber, then attacking with Zipper Hit, we don't have a resource available to activate the Foundry Heart, unless we wanted to pitch our High Octane or our Techlo Core, which we don't. But if we had done this turn in a different order, if we attacked with the Zipper Hit first, we boost it. Now we have 2 resources available, which satisfies the condition of Techlo Foundry Heart. Techlo Foundry Heart says you need to have boosted in order to activate it. Now I understand that many of you are Dash players, or at least have some level of familiarity with the hero. So you'll have to humor me for these first few videos as I'm describing things which you've been doing since Arcane Rising released. But for me at least, and I'm sure for other viewers, this is really our first experience with Dash, and we're learning all these little nuances that all of you have known for some time. So we have the opportunity to block here. This jumpstart is coming for 5 with Go again. I am expecting that Maxx has a follow-up attack to this before he activates his hero power to make a hyperdriver. Let's take a look at our hand. We can see what we might want to block with, if anything. Our Techlo Core is going to make us 2 resources. Our High Octane would use one of those resources to draw us a card and generate action points. And without using Foundry Heart or necessarily drawing another blue, we can pitch this Techlo Core in our hand to Sprocket Rocket, then Pulse Wave Harpoon, and Big Shot. Between the core on field and the core in hand and Foundry Heart, we have 6 resources available, and we only need 5 to play out our hand as it is. We do, however, need our Sprocket Rocket and our Pulse Wave Harpoon to get maximum value out of the Big Shot. So for this turn, I am inclined not to block. We have 5 resources, 6 if we Foundry Heart. We'll play a High Octane, which will draw us a 5th card. We have the potential to get a lot of damage out of this turn in exchange for just taking 10. And that is what I'm going to do. I do want to get the most value out of my cards that I can, but we do also need to consider the fact that Maxx becomes a lot more dangerous if we aren't killing him before he gets the Nitro Mechanoid or very shortly after. This hand is really good. We have our Sprocket Rocket and our Pulse Wave Harpoon, but we also draw into a red Zipper Hit. So we have the ability to use our floating resource and our Techlo Core from hand to get 4 resources. That is enough to pay for Sprocket Rocket, Zipper Hit, and Pulse Wave Harpoon. Pulse Wave Harpoon now has the 3 boost condition, such that Maxx needs to reveal 3 cards from his hand, and we also get to make 1 block. Maxx does have a number of 2 blocks in his deck. Sometimes they play Gas Up, sometimes they play Recharge, but for the most part he is a Mechanologist. All of his cards block for 3. So Pulse Wave Harpooning for 2 boosts on the chain probably doesn't get too many cards out of him. On the other hand, we have the High Octane effect active. So if we were to Sprocket Rocket, Zipper Hit, Pulse Wave Harpoon, we would only have 2 resources available. We would activate our Foundry Heart, we would play our big shot, and that is where our turn would end. It would be 19 value overall with no floating resources and no arsenal. But if instead we zipper hit, pulse wave harpoon, big shot, now we are taking 6 resources. We have 7 available and 8 if we Foundry Heart. And if we take that line, we are getting 18 out of our boosts and an additional 4 or 6 out of our pistol. So now we're presenting 22 or even 24 damage, which I think is a lot more important as far as racing Maxx. So we are going to zipper hit, boost, pulse wave harpoon, boost. At that point, we can break the chain to Foundry Heart and load the gun and do any number of other things. But we do need to make sure that we Pulse Wave Harpoon first. We have an option as well to Foundry Heart, play Big Shot, then play the Teklo Core. My only concern there is, do we need that many resources? That's 4 additional resources on our next turn. Now, it's possible that we could make full use out of them, but I would also like to just get damage out of this high octane. So we big shot for 8. We see that Maxx was sitting on a clunky hand. We can just attack with gun, so we are getting our 22 damage this turn. We could Foundry Heart here to put a counter on the induction chamber, if not the gun itself. If we had Foundry Hearted, we put a counter on the chamber. We could have used the chamber, but we don't have additional resources floating. We could also break our Achilles accelerator to get an additional action point to shoot the gun one more time. That absolutely isn't worth it. But I am learning as I play more Dash, and maybe my opinion on this will change, but putting a counter on the induction chamber, burning 2 cards to do that, doesn't really seem to be worth it. As we get towards the end of the game and we are really considering the number of cards left in our deck and getting the most value out of our chamber, having an extra counter on the chamber doesn't really seem to be worth the 2 cards that we would have to banish to Foundry Heart. Any blue in our deck lets us pistol, chamber, pistol. We don't play that many yellows to get additional value out of that 1 counter on the chamber. It just doesn't seem like something I want to be doing. Getting an additional counter on the gun is much more useful, because if we block out with our hand, we can still shoot for 2. Or if we have an action point at the end of the turn, we can shoot for 2. So I like Foundry Hearting to get an additional counter on the gun, but not on the chamber. We are kind of punished for having a very big turn where we draw into 4 blues, and the blue count in this deck is high enough that this isn't likely, but it's a lot more possible than it is to draw blue heavy in FaB. So how are we going to use this hand? We have 2 resources available from Core. We also kind of have 6 resources available from Sprocket Rocket and Expedite, neither of which I want to play, and neither of which I'm very excited about arsenaling. I do want to arsenal this 0 to 60. It attacks for 2. It is a 0 cost boost, so it helps enable Pulse Wave Harpoon, Big Shot, or Maximum Velocity. It's also a card in Arsenal for our Crown of Providence, which I'm not really looking to use kind of willy-nilly. I don't want to just do it because we only get to do it once. But having a 5th card in the arsenal, even if it's bad, is worth considering when we have Crown of Providence available. So what we can do here is load the gun, load the chamber. We can play and boost throttle. We can give it go again. We can then gun, chamber, load chamber, gun, pass. It utilizes all of our resources. We are ending the turn with a counter on the chamber, which I just talked about, how that doesn't seem to be the most impactful thing we can do, but we aren't burning cards from our deck to do it. We just happen to have extra resources. And when you have extra resources, load your items. We're doing that here. We could choose not to boost the throttle, but I would like to shoot my gun one more time this turn. We get to push a little damage, and we draw back up to 5. Of course, now we draw an all-red hand that is very resource heavy, so definitely would have liked to combine these last 2 hands into one. As far as blocking this, we should get value out of our hand. We can't use both of these throttles. Now, what I would like to do here is cash in the Crown of Providence. I'm going to choose not to do it. I really think that I should be doing it here, bottoming one of our throttles to see if we draw into a blue, as having a blue would definitely improve this hand. And now that said, losing a throttle here isn't the worst thing in the world. Say we crown away our arsenal and draw into a blue. We still can't really use this hand to its full potential. We would throttle, Foundry Heart, throttle, 0 to 60 arsenal zipper hit. So still a really strong hand, but if we are going to crown now, we crown away our arsenal, maybe we draw a blue, we still have a very strong hand. Now I will say, I don't think this is optimal. If we were going to use our crown, which again, we can really put Maxx on following up the crankshaft, we use our crown first. If we draw into another red, well, now we still have the opportunity to block from hand. We're going to push big damage with this blue, but we could push even bigger damage. If we still had our throttle, we would take an extra 3 here and crack in for 16 and also get an arsenal. As it is, we can still do a lot of damage. Between our 0 to 60 and our throttle, that's 10. We'll boost both of them. We will use our floating resource from pitching this blue to Foundry Heart, which is going to let us load our gun, use our chamber, then load our gun again. So we're pushing 14 this turn, and we get to arsenal a zipper hit. Zipper hit not nearly as good as 0 to 60 for enabling a Pulse Wave Harpoon or a Big Shot or a Maxx V, but is still a 5 power attack that can start that sequence of events. Again, for experienced mechanologist players, I'm sorry that I'm butchering your class. I'm sure you're seeing plenty of things that are suboptimal. I've already caught 1 or 2 in this rewatching that I didn't catch the first time. My comments are always open for questions or feedback, so please, if there are things that you're seeing, let me know, ways that I can improve. I would love to hear them. There is going to be some wonkiness in this turn. My opponent and I spent about 5 minutes trying to figure out why Talishar was bugged. So this twin drive is supposed to have boosted 2 cards. The issue we were experiencing is that double boosting the twin drive would double activate hyperdrivers. So Maxx was ending up with 1 less hyperdriver than he was supposed to have. This isn't the way it functions in paper. That isn't according to the rules. So it was an issue. And I'm bringing this up because this Pulse Wave Harpoon is supposed to ask me to reveal 3 cards instead of 2. And the 3 cards I'm revealing here are Maxx V, Twin Drive, and 0 to 60. I'm going to only reveal 2 of them now, but I am also blocking with the twin drive, which a double boosted pulse wave harpoon would not have me do. So that's why I bring it up. It's just, it was weird, it was bugged. That's why things are happening this turn that don't look intentional. As far as our turn, we are just going to 0 to 60 zipper hit, Foundry Heart, gun, chamber, gun. We will push 13 damage this turn. We're absolutely going to get the rest of Max's armor. He has 2 hyperdrivers. He's going to make a third one on his next turn. We're pretty confident that he has a mechanoid at this point, or at least that he could have a mechanoid, but there isn't really anything we can do about it. Losing the twin drive to the pulse wave harpoon makes it so that we cannot play Maxx FaB this turn. We're still going to arsenal it. It's a little riskier without crown to cycle it away if it ever becomes inconvenient, but we have enough zero cost boost in this deck that we should always be able to tank the hits to play it. Raj's deck is very blue heavy. It can lead to those 4 blue hands, which feel really bad in the moment, but there is so much zero cost boost that being able to Maxx FaB off of a 5 or sometimes even 4 card hand is pretty likely. We are not going to block this throttle. We have 19 life. We have 2 zero cost blues and a zipper hit in hand. We will have the resources available to play these 3 boost attacks and Maxx FaB, which is of course what we're very interested in doing. Mechanoid here coming down eats Max's board, and we are just going to cash in the front half of Foundry Heart. Again, we don't want to block from hand. We want to be able to fire off our Maxx FaB, which we need our entire hand to do. So we'll take 4 here and we'll go to 9. This turn, sequencing is very important, and you will see a little sped up section of this game where my opponent was gracious enough to let me undo a number of times as I figured out exactly what needs to happen. So what I want to do on this turn is play T-Bone, T-Bone, zipper hit, Maxx FaB. I also want to Foundry Heart so that I can load my gun and my chamber. But because of how Foundry Heart works, and you need to have boosted and you need to have resources, it means that I need to play a T-Bone. I can't just play out this hand, T-Bone, T-Bone, zipper hit, Maxx FaB. I need to break that chain at some point. The other consideration is that T-Bone is going to force the mechanoid to block. And I want the mechanoid to not be able to block Maxx FaB, which means that once I play my second T-Bone, I can't break the chain to Foundry Heart or load pistol. So the correct sequencing here is T-Bone boost, break chain, Foundry Heart, load gun, T-Bone, zipper hit, Maxx FaB. Then I can do other things. Load the chamber as well and give the pistol go again. We can also think about breaking Accelerator to push extra damage this turn. But let's start with blue T-Bone. Mechanoid is equipment, so it is going to force the mechanoid to block, which is insane value for us. Obviously forcing a 5 block piece of armor to block a 1 power attack is really good. So here I'm undoing and figuring out how my hero works and all of this nonsense, and my opponent is very graciously letting me figure this out. So at this point we have our 4 available resources. We will load the gun. We don't need to load chamber here. At this point, I believe I am pretty committed to using my accelerator And the reason to use Accelerator here is that we are going to get Maxx's hand at this point. Maxx very likely to block this zipper hit, then very likely to put his entire hand in front of Maxx V in order to get maximum value out of all of his block. If Maxx blocked this Maxx V for 6, he takes 4, we break Accelerator, and we shoot for 2. He has to put a 3 block in front of a 2 power attack, which is less good for him. I'm choosing to break Achilles here. I don't think it's worth it. My thought at the time is that I wanted to make sure that any gun is lethal, so that if I end up blocking with 3 cards from my next hand, I can't do it because of overpower on the Mechanoid. But my thought process was, if I have to block from hand, if I give 3 cards and I keep 1 blue, Maxx has to block both pistol attacks. He can't just let one go through. I don't think this is worth it. As I just drew a Spark of Genius, I think the correct line of play is to just pass with a counter on the pistol, because what I could do here, if I had the Achilles, is I could play 0 to 60 for 4 boost, then spark out my last core, draw a card, then use Achilles to get an action point, and then continue my turn and probably deal more damage than I'm going to deal now. As it is, I get to deal a decent amount of damage this turn. 0 to 60 for 4, 0 to 60 for 3, Pulse Wave Harpoon for 4, Load, Shoot, Gun is a total of 13 damage. Maxx needs to do quite a bit of blocking. This is going to be an example of a time where I don't think Foundry Hearting for a counter on Chamber is worth it. I will have 1 resource available after playing this Pulse Wave Harpoon. I could definitely use the Foundry Heart to make a second resource to put 1 on Chamber, but again, I don't think it's necessary. I think I'm always going to have 1 blue, so I can pistol, chamber, pistol, and we only have 16 cards left in our deck, so throwing 2 away for a counter on pistol, a counter on chamber just doesn't seem worth it. And this is what I'm going to choose to do. I don't like it. Counter on pistol always seems worth it. Counter on chamber never seems worth it. Maybe that's wrong, but that's just my estimation of value at this point. So Maxx is going to give us our last card from hand. He survives at 1, and we'll see what we draw into. A really good hand here. 2 red T-bones, a Pulse Wave Harpoon, and a blue to pay for it all. Now we are at 3, so we need to block. We'll be blocking with our Foundry Heart for sure. The question is, are we giving a card from our hand, or are we giving Adaptive Plating and Induction Chamber? The correct answer is to give Induction Chamber. So if we give Chamber, we keep this full 4 cards and we go to 1 life. Then our turn is T-Bone Boost, Pulse Wave Boost, Load Pistol, Shoot Pistol. That is a total of 12 damage over 4 links. 1 of them is a breakpoint. So it's possible that Maxx has a firewall to block the Pulse Wave Harpoon, but he needs it. Otherwise, he has to block both T-Bones from hand. He has to give 2 cards to stop the Pulse Wave, and then the pistol kills him. If we instead block with Foundry Heart and Pulse Wave Harpoon, now our turn is T-Bone Boost, Load Pistol, Load Chamber, Load Pistol. It's 3-3-2-2, so it's less damage overall, and none of it is a 4 power breakpoint, so Maxx is able to cleanly block from hand. The best line here is to give up our Induction Chamber. Now I am overvaluing Chamber here. It's a very good card, of course. it is going to let us convert all of the blues that are left in our deck into 4 damage at the end of a chain. We very likely win this game based off of that, but we could have just won the game here instead by giving up the chamber. So that was 100% a mistake. Now here we get to do very cool T-bone things. Mechanoid does not have enough block value left on it to cleanly cover the T-bone. So not only does it need to block, but Maxx needs to block from hand as well. And we're going to get to do it again. T-bone is not something that I really thought about as breaking the Mechanoid, but it does. And that's just really cool that Raj's List runs Rainbow T-bone, because sometimes we get to do this. So load pistol, load chamber, shoot pistol, load pistol, shoot pistol. Maxx needs to give us his hand. Maxx no longer has a Mechanoid, so his turn is nothing. And we draw into a hand that will kill Maxx. 1 boost, 1 boost, 1 boost, pistol, chamber, pistol. So it works out for us, and we win the game based off of chamber, but we could have won that 1 turn earlier if we had used our plating instead. We're going to have 3 cards left in our deck by the time this game ends. So let's say that Maxx was just a little higher on life and could take one of these attacks. Then we lose, because our hand can't even boost after that. We draw 3 cards, yeah, we can pistol, chamber, pistol, but boosting requires there to be cards left in the deck, and we almost don't have them. So definitely something that I need to work on as I play more Dash is just, it's doing math, it's counting. Sequencing is very important as far as when can I afford to break the chain, when do I not want to break the chain, when do I have a resource available, when do I not, but also keeping an eye on the number of cards left in my deck, because playing FaB never taught me to do that. Playing FaB just said, are there cards? Great, they have natural go again. But for Dash, she needs a deck to have go again. She needs to be able to boost cards from the deck, and at the start of the game, when I put my item down and draw 4 cards, I have 55 cards left in my deck. It's easy to say, well, I'm as likely to banish a bad card as I am a good card. But as the deck size gets smaller and smaller, and I'm pitching all of my blues to the bottom, but I still haven't seen a big shot or a Maxx FaB or a high octane, now it is not as likely that I banish a bad card as a good card. It's a lot more likely that I banish a good card. So boosting kind of meaninglessly as the game goes on to put a counter on the chamber or just burn one essentially is something that I really need to keep an eye on and not do. So this was something new. We're playing a new hero. I'm going to be playing Dash and putting up Dash videos pretty much until Heavy Hitters comes out, at which point I will get back on FaB and start testing against the new meta in preparation for Road to Nats. But until that time, I enjoy playing Dash. I've played a few Dash games already. I'll be playing more. She's a fun hero. I get to learn a different playstyle against Bravo or Dromai or some of the other heroes that sort of necessitate the pistol package. And I hope you're going to enjoy it too. If you are a mech player and you saw obvious misplays, please let me know. I would like to get better at this hero. But otherwise, I hope you enjoyed this game. I hope maybe my new Dash players out there learned something. If you did, 0 to 60 that like button. My comments are always open for questions or feedback, or for you to tell me where I messed up. And I will be back tomorrow with more daily Dash gameplay. So until then, take care.